Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the Nobel Peace Prize Laureate Lecture. To begin today's event, I would like to invite Professor Simon Chesterman, Dean of NUS College, to give the welcome remarks. Professor Chesterman, please.
Thank you very much, and what a delight it is to have an in-person event, and particularly with such a distinguished speaker. Mr Kailash Satyarthi, Nobel Peace Prize Laureate, Ms Laura Spreckman, CEO of Nobel Prize Outreach, Professor Joanne Roberts, President of Yale NUS College, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Simon Chesterman. I have the honour of being Dean of NUS College, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this event. NUS College, in partnership with Yale NUS, is delighted to host this Nobel Peace Prize Laureate Lecture. Yesterday I had the opportunity to hear Mr Satyarthi's story, his literal and metaphorical journey that led, among other things, to a march to Geneva and a treaty prohibiting the worst forms of child labour. And as an international lawyer, I was particularly pleased about your highlighting of the International Labour Organization and the impact it can have on the world and on people, but especially on the role that youth played in bringing about that change. Part of the vision of NUS College, a vision that I know we share with Yale NUS, is to encourage and empower students to bring about positive change in the world. And so I'm delighted that Mr Satyarthi has chosen to speak on the topic of harnessing the power within, youth lead the change. In the room with us today are students from across multiple faculties and colleges of diverse backgrounds and even more diverse futures. I know that you will find Mr Satyarthi's story interesting. I hope you will find it inspiring. Years from now, we might be welcoming some of you to come back and speak to and inspire future generations of students. For the moment, however, like you, I'm looking forward to the lecture. To introduce our laureate, it's my great pleasure to invite Ms Spreckman from the Nobel Prize Outreach Organization to say a few words. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Professor Simon Chesterman. Dear Nobel Peace Laureate Kailash Satyarthi, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, it's such an honor for me to be here at NUS College and share this moment with you, listen to our dear Nobel Peace Laureate from 2014, and I think that all his merits, to read and share all his merits would take half the lecture, so we will skip that and go right into the lecture. I'm sure that Kailash will light a candle within all of you, judging by who he is and by the title of the lecture. We hope that you leave this place with inspiration and new questions to ask, and asking questions is what our work is all about at Nobel Prize Outreach, to inspire not least young people to think, to learn, to collaborate based on the Nobel Prize and all the prize categories which we represent. And actually, we have the great pleasure of covering the science, humanities, peace, which means that we are able, together with the Nobel Prize laureates, to work and address topics in a very interdisciplinary way, which I know is what you are working with as well, representing different fields and thinking in an interdisciplinary way about problems and issues that we are facing today. So with this, I would just like to thank NUS College for hosting us, and you, Professor Simon Chesterman and Daniel Go, and the team. A special thanks to our Nobel International partners that support us, and to you for attending. So please enjoy the session, and I will in 2 seconds invite Kailash Satyarthi on stage, but before that we will watch a brief video, and then the floor is yours. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you.
Good morning. Little bit slow. How are you today? Not so good. Many say good. Still sleepy? I saw when I was entering here that some of you were holding some food in their hands and having your breakfast or lunch or dinner. Lunch. I heard that you guys have your lunch around 11 o'clock. If I stay here a little longer, I will learn. But today I am going to have my lunch at 2 o'clock. It would be a dinner time for you. So, dear young friends, my dear sister and CEO of Nobel Prize Dialogue, Laura, Professor Simon, sisters and brothers. Sorry, when I say sisters and brothers, at least there is one person who is not my sister. She is my wife, Sumedha. So friends, it's a privilege and opportunity to be amongst you in this, one of the most prestigious universities on the earth, NUS. Who want to be happy being here? If I was of your age, I could have requested Professor Simon to give me a few years so that I can study here. Are you enjoying your stay and studies here? Yes. Little bit shy. But when you go back from here, you won't remain so shy. I promise you. Your voice will come out. Perhaps your hands also risen. I'm especially thankful, actually. You should also be thankful to the Nobel Dialogue, Nobel Prize people, Laura and her team. Why I'm saying this? Because I remember a personal anecdote. When I was young, younger than you, maybe 8, 9, 10 years, I read about Nobel Prizes, and I had a dream. But that dream was not to win the Nobel Prize or get the Nobel Prize. My dream was very simple and small. I wanted to meet a Nobel laureate and wanted to have some photos with him. That was not the time of selfies, so a proper photo. And then I would have had this photo in my drawing room, my bedroom, my whatever room, with that pride that I am standing with the Nobel laureate or sitting. But I tell you that I had to wait for 50 years for that. There was a great occasion in Germany, I recall, when I had an opportunity to sit beside His Holiness the Dalai Lama. There was a big, what they call the Christian Day. So both of us were talking about compassion. And as soon as he entered in the big hall, I started looking at a cameraman. If there is a cameraman, he can take our photo. There were some cameramen who came, but all of them were focusing on the Dalai Lama and not on me. So I was sitting in the corner and tried to ask someone that, is there any possibility to take a photo together? But no luck. These people were asked to leave because of the security of the Dalai Lama. But he was very kind. He is such a magnet. He kept holding my hand for several minutes. And since I was wearing these typical Indian kurta pajama, he could see and he could feel that I come from India. And he lives in India. So he started talking in few sentences. So he was asking something I was not able to answer because I was looking here and there for a cameraman. And no cameraman, so no luck. And he asked, young man, whom are you looking for? I did not say anything. I was shy, as you are today. A little bit later, it would not happen. Once you become a Nobel laureate, then you will you will remember this. So, anyway, but I was having goosebumps in all my body when he was holding my hand. I shared this story with him after we became good friends, father and son, but also good friends. We share many things common. So, not the Nobel Peace Prize, but other things also. So, I could not meet any Nobel laureate or could not have a photo. So suddenly, I got a call on the 10th of October 2014, and that was a journalist. He was so excited, he said, Kailash ji, Nobel Prize. And I thought that somebody might have got the Nobel Prize, and he's asking for my reaction or for my comment. And I, truly speaking, had no idea that when these prizes are announced or what happens. So I don't want to be looked as a stupid person, ignorant about those things. So in my office, I was sitting in my office, I started Googling Nobel Peace Prize 2014. It took a few seconds, but after a few seconds, my name started appearing, Kailash Satyarthi. I said, oh God, how could it be possible? Then my colleagues from my office came and they started hugging me and kissing me, and some of them started crying in tears out of joy. Then I was not so stupid also. I thought that it happened with me. So I did not want to miss that opportunity, having my first photo or selfie with a Nobel laureate. So I rushed into my washroom and I stood in front of the mirror and took several selfies. Nobel Peace Laureate with a Nobel Peace Laureate. I did not give the title to those selfies, but you can imagine that should be the title. Not Kailash Satyarthi, but Kailash Satyarthi, because I used to use mirror since my childhood. But that was the first photograph. But Laura, you or someone was not there that time, otherwise I could have that opportunity when I was of their age. So thanks for organizing such dialogues. Friends, when I stand here, I see enormous potential and possibilities of present and for the future. Each one of you is full with those potentials. I was not just joking when I said that one day one of you can, or many of you can become the Nobel laureates. I know that I'm standing in front of those CEOs, presidents and chairs of companies. I'm standing with those people. One day the world will know that they became the ministers or even the prime minister. One of you can become the chairperson or whatever, president of this university, or dean or professor. Nobody knows that one of you would be a great player or heading a United Nations agency. You have produced such people. The NUS produced such people who led UN agencies like World Health Organization and others. So I am standing with the present, but I'm also standing with the bright future of the world. Dear friends, when you see all these buildings, advancements and technology, artificial intelligence, good governance, democracies, when you sit in the best cars, now the electric or solar-driven green cars, whatever you see around you, big bridges and the beauty and the strength of this nation, Singapore, which is a dream city for many countries in the world. What is this? This is the true reflection and result of some individuals and collective dreams of young people. Not only dreams, but determination, dedication, and diligence of young people. Because the construction, the magnification which you see now today is nothing but yesterday's dream of someone. And those someone were the hardworking, intelligent, passionate young people. They grew with those dreams, and these dreams are reflected here. Am I wrong? Is it right or not? These scientists, two of them were addressing the dialogue yesterday, and the third one was online. I'm sure that they started dreaming a better world, a more rational understanding and knowledge, and solutions to many of the scientific and medical issues and problems. They have advanced the world with the dreams and determination they have gathered in their younghood when they were young people. And this is exactly happening here today. Let me begin with Devli. Devli was an 8-year-old girl whom I freed from intergenerational slavery. Her grandfather was trafficked, means were lured away, taken away from their native village with false promises to work at a stone quarry. Their children were born and grew up there, and the third generation was born and grew up there. Somehow, my colleagues and I came to know that several people were held in virtual slavery, in slavery there. They were not allowed to leave. They were never paid anything. So I decided to go and rescue them. It was about, I think, 15 years ago. But I still recall that vividly because it has its own significance. So I used to conduct secret rescue operations, raids, as you saw briefly in this film. that is always dangerous. So we decided to go in the middle of the night, and we kept on waiting outside the quarry till early morning, till dawn. And we went to rescue them. We did not find the owners or anyone. So we asked everyone to come with us. Children, women and men. And I was driving my car, and there was a truck, so rest of the people were sitting in the truck. I took younger children with me in my car because it's always a dangerous operation. The driver could be bribed, driver could be threatened, driver could run away. So I trust in my own driving. So this girl was sitting beside me. There were other children in the front row, 2 more children, and a few children sitting in the back row and the middle row. They were all traumatized. They never sat in the car. They have never seen roads. They have never seen the buildings. And I was driving fast, and they were all shocked to see this because they could not comprehend freedom. So I tried to engage them in some talk, wanted to console them and ease them. But they were very shy and nervous. So there were some leftover bananas. The bunch of bananas were lying in the back of the car. I asked one of those children to pick up that bunch and forward so that everybody can eat those bananas. But none of them saw banana before. So the boy asked, "What is this?" I said, "This is this green, yellowish fruit. Please send in the front." And I asked everyone, insisted rather, to eat. So some of them started eating. And then I was rushing very fast, driving very fast. So when I look at those children, a few of them were trying to eat. They were trying to push them inside their mouth, and others were just throwing it away. And then I realized that when they have never seen banana before, how stupid I was that I did not teach them how to eat bananas. How can they eat without peeling it? And I felt that this is a century-long distance to travel, several centuries long distance to travel from slavery to freedom, ignorance to knowledge. That was the depiction of modern-day slavery in this advanced world. When yesterday we were talking about creating the colonies on Mars and Moon. I tell you, Laura, I was still remembering such incidents of my children in more than 100 countries or 150 countries where I work. Similar incidents. I taught them how to eat banana. After a while, this tiny girl, Devli, just hit my shoulder and asked with anger, pain, but some authority and trust, combination of all these feelings I could feel. And she asked, "Oh man, why didn't you come early?" It was not because of banana, dear friends. She has witnessed the rape of her mother, and when her father tried to save her, his wife, then he was branded, poked with cigarettes, bidis, the country cigarettes. She has also seen the death of her younger brother in her lab without medication. Perhaps the first time this confidence, this trust came in her life, the trust in society. And I was thanking God that God has chosen me for that initiation of trust. She asked, "Why didn't you come early?" This was not the question only for me. This was the question for everyone who believed in humanity. This was the question for everyone who believed in constitution and laws. In the United Nations and governance, everyone who goes to church or temples or mosque, any holy place, everyone who believes in God, that was the question to that everyone. And if we are deaf, if we are ignorant, we cannot say with confidence and honesty that we are civilized, we are cultured, we are educated. If every one single child like Devri is held in slavery and sold and bought like goods or animals, if a single child is in danger, if many of these children are pushed into tunnels, in Ukraine today when we are talking here, they are still aspiring to go to school. If we cannot hear the cry of a girl inside, a 12-year, 13-year-old girl pushed into prostitution in any part of the world, we cannot say that we can ever achieve justice and sustainability and inclusion and peace. And that is the reason I challenge the conscience and try to evoke the conscience of the world for those children. We brought Devli to our ashram, rehabilitation center, which my wife Sumedha runs. She studied there for a few years, and many more children, of course. But why Devli is so significant? When she returned back to her community, where all families were rehabilitated, she went with a determination. As you come here in this university with a lot of personal dreams, maybe some social dreams, for your career, for your future. But what you are gaining here is not simply knowledge and information and education and degree. Your souls are being ignited here to make this world a better place. When you return from here, you will, or you should go with that resolve that you exist in the world. You exist in the world to make it better and peaceful. Your education will help. Your degrees will help or should help. Your knowledge should help. When this girl went, she had the determination that no child would be left out, no child would be left behind. Every child in her community will be out of exploitation and would go to school. There was no school. She knocked every single door and convinced those illiterate, poor parents that this is not good to send your children to work. I am trying to find a way out that how they can go to school. Luckily, in her community, there was a high school pass young man. She requested her and pleaded to teach other children. He agreed. And a school was opened, so-called a school was opened under a tree. 30 children, more than 30 children started coming there. Next week, or in 10 days' time, the United Nations General Assembly begins. I am going there. I also went several years ago, that time not with the Nobel Prize tag, but being the president of Global Campaign for Education, we held a meeting inviting a number of presidents and prime ministers in the United Nations. We made the United Nations authorities agree for such a special meeting on education. Devli was chosen to go there. Tiny young girl sitting on the dais. In the audience, people like Gordon Brown, the Prime Minister of United Kingdom, Kevin Rudd, the Prime Minister of Australia, Queen Rania of Jordan, many presidents, prime ministers, even the heads of UN agencies like UNESCO or UNICEF, UNDP, they were sitting there. This beautiful girl came on the dais, told her story, and then she asked, I have never seen so many white-skinned people. What kind of food you eat? Everybody was stunned, and I had to translate it. Poor Kailash. And then she asked that I have not seen so many kings and queens. I just heard some stories from our grandparents that there's something like king or queen, but this is a real queen. So when she asked this, Queen Rania came on dais and hugged her. And then she challenged. She said that, look, a girl belonging to the lowest social strata of India, one of the lowest caste, tribals, indigenous people, if I could use my knowledge with the resolve that nobody is left out, every child would be studying. I made it possible in my community. And you people with tremendous wealth and knowledge and power, why can't you do? Why don't you do? I tell you that many of them were in tears. Her challenge did not go waste. Gordon, Rania, Kevin, a few of them came on the stage and kissed and hugged her. They have no words. But within no time, let me tell you, this was the first time in any of the UN General Assembly event when $45 million have been committed spontaneously for the education of children in African countries. $45 million were committed immediately for education. This was the power of young person. You need to harness it. You need to acknowledge the power within. They really did. And then she became the spokesperson or a kind of ambassador for the education of marginalized people of the world and traveled to many places and shared dice with a number of heads of the state. I'm sure that each one of you is more fortunate and opportunate. Each one of you has a better childhood, better care, better respect. Each one of you have that power which Devli had. Just feel it for a moment. I could make Devli feel that power. Today, I call upon you and your inner power. No one is coming from the heaven to change the world. Maybe in mythology it is possible. Ordinary people, when they have that determination and compassion, they can change the world. In India, or everywhere in the world, I could see the smile of maybe some Indians sitting here or coming from India. Is it true? ठीक है ना ठीक? कितने लोग हैं इंडिया से? बहुत सारे हैं. There's many Indians here. And you must be watching some Bollywood movies here too? On your computers? Yes? Which movie you watched last week? Huh? Brahmastra. I'm jealous to you. I was thinking to watch Brahmastra, but I was busy with these kind of meetings. Sorry, it's because of you. Simon and Laura. No, I could not watch this beautiful movie. Is it good? No? Then thanks. Thank you. Thank God. So I take my words back. Thankful to you. But when you watch such movies, and some of them are great heroes and heroines, I'm not going to ask the name of the best hero you like or the most favorite hero. Must be some. And heroines also, the actress. They are so powerful, a few of them, they can take you along in your imagination that you are the one who is dancing and your boyfriend is the one who is singing. Something like that you start imagining when you watch those movies. Singing and dancing is very common in Indian movies, but also in others, if not singing and dancing, then the fight and all these kind of heroism. But I ask a simple question. Do you love your friends or brothers, sisters, mother, father? Do you really love? How many of you love your parents? Raise your hands. You don't love your friends. Yeah. So when somebody asked me many years ago, do you love your friends? I started thinking girlfriend. And I didn't have any girlfriend, so I did not raise my hand. But then somebody asked me, do you love your parents and respect them? Do you? Yes or no? I'm not a professor. I'm not going to give you grades and marks here, so don't be shy with me. I'm one of your friends. Do you love me? No. Let me ask in the end of the day. Not now. But do you love your parents and respect them? You also respect and honor your teachers? How many of you? Raise your hands. Raise. Oh yeah, look at that girl. She is the first who raised her hands on the top. sitting in the balcony. And do you do some good work if somebody is in pain and difficulty? Do you help him or her? If somebody is fighting or quarreling or arguing, try to resolve. Do you try to resolve them? Is it? Once in a while you do. You do once in a while. Is there any camera taking your photos when you love your parents or touch their feet? In India, they touch the feet. Is there any camera? There must be some director to tell you this. Is it? No director? Producer? And maybe dialogue. If you say, hello mom, I love you. Is there any dialogue writer? No, us, yes. No. You do on your own, without charging any fees. But your heroes on this silver screen, they charge huge money for every single dialogue. If they kiss their girlfriend, they charge money. Or the boyfriend, they charge more money. If they hug, they charge money. If they fight, they charge money. They charge for everything. So who is the real hero? Are these people on the film are heroes, or you are the real hero? Who is the real hero? You are the real hero, he said. What is your name? Yes. Stand. Huh? Archana. Beautiful name, Archana. So, they are actors. And if you do some good thing, you are the real hero. Isn't? How many of you have done something good in your life? When you feel happy and satisfied, oh God, I did good thing. Did you do some good thing in your life? I'm sure each one of you have done. You raised your hands. I'm not asking what good you did, but you did. Did. And you charge some money for that? So who is the real hero? Tell, I am the real hero, tell. Stand. Who is the real hero? Me. Good. Archana, who is the real hero?
We all are.
You cannot take guarantee for others. You should tell, I am the hero.
I am the hero.
Good. I am not going to ask you to do acting because they are actors. Real heroes acknowledge and harness their power for a better world, for a peaceful world, for a non-violent world, for a world which is lovable, which can end the sufferings and hatred around us. They are the real heroes. So if you are a real hero, Laura said that I'm going to ignite some candles. I need not to ignite. When they are the heroes, they will ignite the candles, isn't? Look at this, for example. This is a wood. What is this? Wood. And you are sitting on the wood and, I think, cloth, plastic sheets, is it? What is that? Cushion, clothing. Each one of them is filled with energy, with fire. Each thing around us, what we can see and what we can't see, has that fire within. What is needed? We have to bring some fire from outside, some matchstick, and show it to a candle, and the candle burns. It does not mean that the matchstick should be credited for that, because matchstick will come and go. The candle will live longer. Each one of you is that candle. People like us will come and go as matchsticks. But we know that this is the candle which has fire within. Our job is just to ignite it a little bit. Some courage, some resilience, some resolve, some compassion. And that will glow, that will enlighten the world. And this is exactly happening now slowly. Is it happening here today? True or not? Yes. Even you're quite slow, you have to become a little louder. Is it happening or not? Yes. No, I can't hear. Is it happening? Yes. Good. So it is happening. So these 45 minutes, something must change. I am not a leader. Neither I am a priest, nor academician or professor. I am one of you, as I said before. And that's why I wanted to see the burning candle, which is there in your eyes, But somehow, in the upbringing, sometimes in your education, not here, but education in all forms, in the whole ecosystem, you are taught or you are conditioned that your fire, not to destroy the world, but fire to ignite, should be controlled. Fire could be disciplined, should be disciplined, but sometimes we are so pushed into the framework of disciplines, we ignore our inner power, our inner fire. Or sometimes we forget that the fire is. And sometimes we try to hide that fire. Why you hide that fire? Speak. When I was an engineering student, I had a chance to visit Delhi. I come from a small town in Madhya Pradesh. And I used to, while studying electrical engineering, I used to write in magazines and newspapers on social issues, philosophical issues, and so on. And my articles were published in many magazines, including a magazine which was edited by a beautiful young lady in Delhi. So I knew about her. So one day when I was visiting Delhi, I thought that I should take this opportunity to meet that girl, my editor. So I went to my editor's office. Luckily, I saw her in her office, and she was about to leave the office in a few minutes. So I introduced myself to her assistant and I said that my name is Kailash Satyarthi. So I wanted to meet your boss. The boss was a little bit behind. She looked at me, the girl, this assistant, said, how come? Kailash Satyarthi? I said, yes. She went to the lady, editor, and told that this man wanted to meet you. He says that he is Kailash Satyarthi. And that editor looked at me. What nonsense! This boy, how could it be Kailash Satyarthi? Because he writes such enriching articles and such controversial articles, and he should be in his 50s, 60s, at least in 60s or 50s, if not younger. But he looks like 20, 25-year-old. I was 23. So, no, I was 22, to be precise. I insisted that I am Kailash Satyarthi, and nobody listened to me. And then this lady, young lady came to me and asked that, what nonsense you are talking? Leave this place. How could it be possible? I said, I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to see you. She did not pay any heed. She went. But I did not go. I wanted to meet her father, who was the publisher of that magazine. Eventually, I was allowed to talk to him. After 10, 15 minutes of conversation, this wise man was convinced that this boy is Kailash Satyarthi. So he was also leaving and going home. It was already 6 o'clock. So he said that, young man, where are you staying in Delhi? You came all the way from Madhya Pradesh, from the central India. Though I was staying with a friend of mine, not staying, I want to stay, because I came straight from the railway station. I looked here and there and I said, sir, I may stay somewhere, but I'm not staying anywhere now. And that was properly hit. And then he said, if you don't have any place to stay, why don't you come with me? So I said, yes, sir, thank you so much. So he took me in his car, and I went to their home. And this girl, she was also unmarried, I knew it. And she was 20. So when I reached there, she was very angry and said that this is a cheater, and how could he come here? But I was smiling because her father was convinced. And then we had some talk, and some more talk, and some more, and we have fallen in love, and finally we got married, and that beautiful girl is sitting here. I harnessed my power of youth. So when you are determined, if you don't give up, she has already rejected me and said that you're not Kailash Satyarthi. But everyone has to prove in her or in his life that who is he. And I was able to prove. So she is not only my wife, but she is a leader, a companion, and a fighter against child slavery in India, and she is the mother. I tell you, she is the mother of not only 2 biological children, but the mother of thousands and thousands of children, hundreds of thousands of children whom we rescued or helped, and they were rehabilitated in our centers, and they not only call her, but consider her as their mother. So, have that clear eye. Dear friends, today when we are standing here, 160 million children are engaged in producing goods for us, food for us. Sugar, coffee, chocolate, cotton. They are extracting the minerals, nickel and cobalt, which are used in these green cars I'm talking about. They are working in brick kilns and stone quarries and domestic help and brothels. They are working in workshops and factories, making clothes, making shoes, and some of those things we might be using. But those 160 million children is not a data, is not a figure. They are living human beings in their breathing bodies. They have mothers They have fathers, they have sisters, brothers, but many a times they are separated away from their families and forced to work and confined inside the workshops and mines all across the world. In rich countries like United States and the poorer countries in sub-Saharan Africa, we keep on working. And many of you will not be knowing, or some of you might be knowing, that until 1999, there was no international convention against these worst forms of child labor, including child slavery, child trafficking, use of children in hazardous occupations, bonded labor, etc. Use of children as child soldiers or prostitutes and so on. There was no international law. And I and my colleagues who were freeing children physically from slavery, helping them in rehabilitation and education, realized that we should have an international law. So people laughed at me and said, what are you talking about, Kailash? You are not a local councillor. Forget about being member of parliament in your country or whatever. You are not a rich person. You live in a two-room house. How can you think of making an international law? I said, let us try. If this idea came to my mind, and I tell you that whenever a new idea comes to my mind, I refine it, I reflect on it, and if it is good for everyone, it is for the betterment of children, I try to reflect through my engineering lens in terms of strategy, in terms of planning, in terms of resources, resourceability, in terms of potential partnership, in terms of the indicators, in terms of goal post and the final goal, and so on. So I said, we want to march across the world to engage millions of people, and children in particular, young people from university and colleges, and try to build that momentum and pressure on the governments and international community. Finally, we successfully organized a march, which I mentioned yesterday, from 3 corners of the world. It started in January 1998, from Manila, from Sao Paulo, and from Cape Town. These marches covered 80,000 kilometers distance. Do you know how much is the periphery of the earth? Less than 40,000 kilometers. We covered double than the periphery of the earth. We went across 103 countries in those almost 6 months. 3 marches. Young children, survivors, university students like you, and many, most of the people were of your age. They were marching on the streets, not just for themselves, but also they joined for a day or 2 or an hour to be the change maker and to prove that the change is not only possible, but change is inevitable. Freedom is non-negotiable. Slavery and civilization cannot go hand in hand. So the children were marching, young people were marching, and when we reached Geneva, covering this distance in so many countries, 71 presidents and prime ministers or kings or queens or princes physically joined the march. And when, after reaching Geneva, it was the first time that International Labour Organization has opened its doors for non-conventional tripartite members. Otherwise, until then, only the governments, employers and employees were allowed to enter there. But the marchers, our children, entered there, shouting slogans. No more tools in tiny hands. We want books. We want toys. No more guns in tiny hands. We want books. We want toys. No more child exploitation. We want education. The power of young people was so immense. Most of these world leaders were in tears. They never witnessed, they never imagined that on the corridors of United Nations, the children were marching, the slave laborers, slave children were marching, former prostitutes were marching, and demanding freedom, demanding education. And dear friends, during that session, within a week or so, a resolution has been passed that we would be drafting an international law. So in principle, the international community agreed. And in the following year, in 1999, during the ILO convention, this international law was unanimously adopted. This was the first time when a law was unanimously adopted by ILO member countries, and this is the first convention, first law that has been universally ratified. So this was not my credit. I underline, not out of my courtesy or being polite. No. The truth is that this was the power of youth, power of young people. Since then, the number of child laborers has dropped from 260 million to 150 million. Until 4 years ago, it was 150 million, 52 million. Now, unfortunately, it is growing due to several factors, and pandemic has exaggerated the situation even worse. So this is I can tell you hundreds of stories of harnessing the power of young people. I'm not talking any theory. This is my life. But there are so many lives. Some of you came all the way from Sweden. I'll give you two examples of Sweden. One is very recent. Both of them are recent. This young girl, Greta Thunberg, she decided that she is going to demonstrate in front of Parliament every Friday. So Friday for Futures campaign began. People started assembling, and that fire, the light, the spark, did not remain confined to that small area in front of the Swedish Parliament. It grew across more than 200 countries. The young people joined hands against global warming and climate change. Most of these campaigners are young people. 3 years ago, she was awarded the Kids' Rights International Children's Peace Prize, and I was invited to give away the prize to her and to some other people that year. And all those who were taking the prize, they were very ordinary people, less privileged than any of you. But they have proven with their inner power that they can bring about change. Some years ago, 5-6 years ago, Swedish government has taken a decision that they are going to reduce the funding, the ODA support for education in African countries particularly, but also low-income countries by half. And that came as a shock for UNESCO, for Global Partnership for Education, and the people like us, organizations like us. So we have a campaign there, and this campaign works in more than 30 countries, what we call the 100 million campaign. The idea behind this campaign is that 100 million young people are suffering multiple, compounded crisis and violence. Young people of your age and younger than you. On the other hand, world is so fortunate to have 2.3 billion people who are below the age of 25. Out of them, at least 100 million, I trust 100 million, should have that feeling for the betterment of others. They wanted to do good for their surroundings, in their surroundings, and for others. They wanted to contribute something now and in the future. That is their education, that is their upbringing. At least 100 million. So we have launched a campaign some years ago in presence of 24 Nobel laureates from different disciplines. Some of them were individuals and most of them were organizations. And there is a strong chapter in Sweden where the high school students and primary students and some universities are the part of it. They launched a campaign called Parliamentarians Go Back to Schools. Perhaps you remember 4 or 5 years. 40% of Swedish parliamentarians were present on that particular day in those classrooms or in those schools where they studied when they were young, in primary or secondary schools. And these girls and boys stood up and asked this question that, are we so poor? Is Sweden became so poor that you have reduced the funding for African children's education? That was a challenge. And a special hearing was organized in Swedish Parliament with those young leaders. I was also invited to put my arguments or whatever. And I tell you that the same night, my executive director got a call from the chief of SIDA that we are changing our decision. And within a week, not only that decision of reducing ODA by half has changed, but 40% additional money has been added for the education of poor children in developing countries. There are 2 examples from Sweden. How many minutes I have? 45 minutes have gone or not yet? 1 minute left. 1 minute left. So 44 has gone. 1 hour. 1 hour has gone. Oh my God. Do you think that 1 hour has gone? Should I stop right away? Or 5 more minutes? How many want that I should speak for 5 more minutes? Raise your hands. This time you have to raise your hands with some courage. I said raise your hands. I did not say raise your hand. I said raise your hands. I can continue for a couple of more minutes, but they are quite nervous. Sorry. When I'm standing with my young friends, I always make the elderly wise people nervous. So there are so many examples. I need not to explain, but you know that there was a shooting in a school some years ago in Florida, and that resulted in a big campaign which went across the country in the United States. I was invited and I joined with these young people also and marched with them, and that was the campaign March for Our Lives. March for Our Lives was a successful campaign. Then after the killing of a black person, there was another campaign which was initiated mainly by the youth, and the youth are the drivers of that campaign, and that is Black Lives Matter. The Black Lives Matter is another US campaign. Apart from this 100 million campaign in Germany, in Sweden, recently I was reading in the newspapers a couple of months ago that, or some of you might have read, that the European Union is working on a due diligence law, a bill for the European Parliament to be brought sometime. So this process of consultation has already begun. And that due diligence law is to ensure that no child labor, no forced labor is involved in the production chain or supply chain of those goods which are produced by the European companies outside. Because it is unjustified, it is unethical and illegal. Not so much illegal, but unethical definitely, that an European company or an American company cannot hire a child laborer in their production or supply. But the same company can go to Latin America, to Asia, to Africa, and can engage children in any amount without any fear. This is a kind of discriminatory mindset. This is a kind of apartheid mindset which is still prevailing in the world. That you can exploit the children of a poor country. You can bribe the local authorities. You can just ignore the laws of the land and the international laws and treaties and bindings in those countries, but that you cannot do in your own country. Therefore, this law is coming, but its genesis is not so long. When Germany was heading the G7 some years ago, German Minister Müller proposed it that there should be a law, European law. Because a year before, in 2019, German Parliament has passed such a law of due diligence in supply chain. Though it's not so a strong law, but it's a law which will help in prohibiting the employment of children and exploitation of children in production of those goods which are produced by German companies. And if we go 2 years before, my children, my young people, my young friends like you in Germany, they ran this campaign. I traveled with them in many places and invited Minister Müller in one of those events where the youth stood up and said that we don't want to buy and use those products made by child labor, child slaves. And he was quite shocked, and he's a sensitive man and very strong. He's not serving as the minister now, but he was a big leader at that time. So I had a meeting with the Chancellor Angela Merkel and number of other people, and invited in the parliament to put my matter in 2-3 parallel meetings. Children were also invited. Children means young people from the high schools and universities were also invited. And they were so clear and strong. A draft has been considered that year in 2019 and 2017 and 2019 this German law has been passed in the parliament, and now I am hopeful that the European law would be passed soon. That is the power of young people. Dear friends, as you raised your hands, you are your own heroes. It is not an exaggeration. I come from a very modest family, but I had a dream. I could discover myself and my inner power slowly, without making a noise outside. When my Nobel Peace Prize was announced, I was told by the founders of Google that it is very rare, rarest of the rare, when the Google search engine was choked. Because people did not know in my own country who Kailash Satyarthi was, and millions of people started searching. Hundreds of millions of people started searching across the world as who's Kailash Satyarthi. So it does not mean that you are known or unknown, you make your publicity or not. More important that whenever a candle burns, it is only the fire, it is only the candle, none else, which has a proof in herself, a self-proof. Candle need not to tell that I am burning. When the candle burns, it's a proof. If you bring an elephant in this building in the night, middle of the night, dark night, elephant has to make some noise. Only then you will learn that elephant is sitting here. But if you burn a candle, ignite a candle, candle need not to prove herself. My dear friends, you are the candle. You are the candle. You are the candle and you are the candle. I'm here to ignite that candle. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Kailash, for now I see like I'm leaving a room with many candles that have been ignited. So it's a beautiful picture to see. Thank you so much for your inspiring words, and thank you all for being our hope and our future. And I would love to see what will happen with all of you and what paths you take. So all the best to you all. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I leave you in company of Professor Simon, and to ask and lead the Q&A.
Yeah. If they like.
And, thank you so much.
The hope of an educational institution, obviously, is we hope students go out with some knowledge, some skills, but especially values, and I think you've really helped inspire. We do have a chance, we're almost at the end of our allotted time, but we have a chance for 3 or 4 questions from the audience. And I've promised Mr. Satyarthi that this is an active audience and that there will not be crickets when I ask for the first question. So I'm delighted to see someone's already grabbed the microphone. So please, very briefly, your name and a question for Mr. Satyarthi.
Thank you, sir, for giving your time for such an insightful lecture. It's an honor to be asking you a question here. I'm Satvik Agarwal. I'm in year 1 studying electrical engineering, and I'm concurrently placed at NUS College. I'm delighted to learn that you studied electrical engineering and went on to do a postgraduate degree in high voltage engineering. I'd love to know what specific things you did to complement your engineering degree during university that ensured you would stay on the path of helping others. I understand your philosophy when it comes to having a thought and asking yourself how this would be beneficial for the world and using your engineering mind to implement it. And I understand your philosophy of harnessing the power of the youth. But did these concrete thoughts come to you while you were in university? And if so, how?
Well, I was good in mathematics and science in my secondary school and scored 98, 99 or 100% marks. So my parents had a dream that I should become engineer. That was the best choice for my career. And I could get admission, I got a scholarship, and I studied. The first year I got the scholarship, but second year I got involved in so many other things and I lost my scholarship. because I could not clear all my papers in the first year. So that time it was not semester, there were years. Of course, I did it later on. There were a lot of subjects paper which I could not clear during the 5 years, and they were accumulated. And once I have fallen with love with Sumedhaji, she said that you have to clear those papers, and I did within 2 months, which I could not do in 4 years. Anyway, so it is the power of love. I'm not asking you to do like that now. Finish your study. That is my own learning. So anyway, right from my childhood, I had some kind of passion for the children who were not able to go to school. The very first day of my schooling, when I was 5.5, 6-year-old, I encountered a situation where a cobbler boy was sitting outside my school gate and looking at us for some job. And I could not understand. So I asked my teacher that, sir, why a child is sitting outside and not with us, with the rest of us in the classroom? He said it's not uncommon, the poor children have to work and have the family and so on. But every day I used to see that boy sitting under the open sky and in rains and summers, and that made me angry from inside and very pained. One day I asked this to boy and his father, who was also sitting along. Boy was shy. He was also my age. But the father answered, sir, I have never thought about it because my father, grandfather all started working since their childhood, and so is my son. Then helplessly, with miserable eyes, he stood up with folded hands and he said that, sir, you guys are born to go to school, but we are born to work. And that was such a kind of challenge or such a shocking question. That was his answer, but it was a question for whole my life, that why some children are born to work at the cost of their freedom and childhood and education and future. I will not accept it. And I'd never accepted it. I'm still fighting, and I assure you that I will see the end of child slavery in my lifetime.
Thank you so much. Please, we have another question there, and if you have a question, go to the microphone, otherwise we'll have to wrap up quite soon, but please go ahead.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Satyarthi, for the presentation. So I'm Abel, first year at NUS College and the School of Computing. I'm also from Malaysia. I'm deeply moved by your work in the welfare of children in general, because I share your passion in children's welfare. Coming from a broken family, my parents' divorce changed my whole life, including my religion and decision to come to Singapore on a scholarship. And so I aspire to be a role model to children from broken families. And so my question is, I would like to ask, in the video just now at the start, so we see that there are people who attacked you. So I want to ask is, why do you think there are people who still oppose you? And what do you say to them?
Yeah, the people who opposed me and even tried to kill me several times and attacked me, I have several injuries on my body. 2 of my colleagues were killed, and many of my colleagues still have scars and injuries and wounds in their bodies. These people who are slave masters or traffickers, means they kidnap or lure away some children from villages, from poor families, make them poor, and sell them to mines or factories and household activities or brothels. They earn a lot of money. This human trade, or what we call the trafficking, is one of those 3 biggest illicit earning areas or illicit earning trades, the trade of human beings, that is still going on, unfortunately. So they feel, they consider me and people like me, other activists and other organizations like their enemies. And those who are engaging children in, say, shoemaking or in cloth making, they don't pay them any money. They keep them in slavery and need not to pay anything. So they are making a lot of money out of slavery of children or child labor. If they engage adult people, then one has to pay proper wages and one has to adhere the rule of law and existing laws. So they try to avoid that. So if I am challenging them, then they would definitely consider me an enemy and wanted to harm me and my organizations and colleagues, and they oppose. So that is the issue. And that is why I strongly feel that not only this problem, but any problem of the world cannot be addressed in isolation, cannot be solved in isolation. Problems and solutions are interconnected, interdependent. So we have to think as a global citizen. Though you live here, you study here, but you are connected with the rest of the world. When we talk of this global warming issue, when we talk of going hatred and divide and oppression or extremism, this is not just confined to one place. If you talk of online child sexual abuse, online porn, child porn, that is not also confined to one place. Children are picked up from one country, they are used for child porn filming in another country or another place, and then the 3 or 4 layers of distribution are there, and the dark net and dark areas and so on. So this is also an international crime, but it has that international nature. This is borderless. Therefore, we have to keep in mind that whatever we do today in any part of the world, it is going to affect the future of entire humankind. If we do good, then the world would be better. The future would be safe and peaceful. If we just sit quiet and think that this is not my job, there's no child slavery in Singapore, why should I do? But I tell you that you might be using those products which are made by child slaves, and you are contributing to it. So you should be aware of it and don't be the part of this crime against humanity. And you can speak out loudly about those things. We can definitely change by doing it. You can use your mobile phone, I was telling yesterday, and once you come to know about the atrocities and abuses of children in any part of the world, you can just put your fingers and push it 3-4 times, and a message of protest goes to the leaders of that country or the officials of that country. So if you start thinking like that, this would be the beginning of globalization of compassion. That would be the beginning of a human connect and making this world more peaceful. I tell that loneliness, isolation, silos bring fear, uncertainty, and insecurity. But when you are connected, when you are helping each other, when you are walking together, then you get rid of those fears and uncertainties and insecurities. So better to learn to live together, to talk and walk together.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
We're going
to
have to stop questions in a minute or two, but I will take, I'll take them in pairs. 1, 2, if you can ask both and then have a chance to respond, and then a last question, and then we'll wrap up. So the lady in the center, but I'll take both these two, please.
A very good afternoon, sir. My name is Srishti, and I'm a year 1 biomedical engineering student at NUS College. Thank you so much for your truly inspiring words. I'm sure they touched a chord in many of us. Sir, my question to you is, what would you say is the biggest obstacle that you have faced in your journey as a child activist, and how did you overcome it? And secondly, what advice would you like to give us as we progress on our journey to attempt to bring about change in the world?
Okay. Hold your thought for a moment. We'll just add
I can just answer in one sentence. The biggest obstacle is the mindset, age-old mindset, or the complacency which prevails in the society, where the people consider that the poor children are just poor and we can we can ignore them, and we should just help or support our own biological children or maybe some other children and be naive people. So the mindset is the biggest obstacle. We have to change that mindset.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, please.
Hello? All right, so yeah, so I'm a year two. Sorry?
Sorry, I'm just saying to the lady who's come up behind you, I'm not going to be able to take.
Okay, yeah, so I'm a year two computer science student at NUS College. And so I think, right, thank you so much for your inspiring talk, right? And I think the biggest words in this talk really have been things like peace and freedom. So I just have a simple question I would like to ask you, which is, to you, what does peace mean, and what does peace look like?
When you smile, few minutes ago you were smiling, some of you are still smiling. When a young person, when a child smiles fearlessly, that is peace for me. When every child on the earth will be able to smile fearlessly and we create that ecosystem where the children can smile fearlessly, that would be the peaceful world.
Okay, the gentleman, are you waiting for a question as well? Okay, the last two questions from you two, please.
Hello, Mr. Satyarthi. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm a fourth-year student at Yale NUS, and I'm really inspired by your talk. I think something I was wondering was, as young people, as we think about so many different issues that we care deeply about and that require our urgent attention, do you have any advice for choosing which issue to commit ourselves to and for which to harness our power for?
Well, we are living in a kind of the time of conflicting issues and interest and priorities. It's true. And sometimes we are so confused that this climate change, global warming is a serious issue. We have to put our feet down on it. Or slavery or trafficking or illiteracy or gender justice, etc., etc. The global discrimination or disparities in terms of distribution of wealth and so on. There are many issues, conflicting issues. But if you sit down quietly for a day or two or for an hour and jot down all these issues, 4, 5, 6 issues or 2 or 3 issues on one side, on the other side of that paper, you write your interest and your ability, your core skill, that you are a good writer or a good speaker, or you can work on internet, or you can use social media, etc., etc. Or you can go on the streets, or you can go to do voluntary work. What are your core strengths and core areas of interest? Put down. And then try to connect those dots. What goes best with what? The third thing, if you want, you can also think that which are the areas or organizations or individuals, groups who are working on this issue and are able to make the difference tangibly. It should be the concrete thing. It should not be just talk shop. If there is something concrete is possible in your mind, then try to connect these 3 dots. To begin with connecting 2 dots, and the third dots could also be there, and then you can choose. Slowly you can delete the first one or the third one and the 6th one and 4th one, and then the 2 second one remains, and then go for second one.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay, last question from the gentleman.
Hi. Hi, I'm Shaharaj, a 4th year from Yale NUS College. I'm from Bangladesh and the Philippines. One thing I wanted to ask you is, how did you start your efforts? As in, what was the first step into starting this, and how did you slowly build up over time?
The first step was when a friend of mine, when I was 11-year-old, the best friend, in fact, dropped out from school because he was very poor and his parents could not afford textbooks and fees. And that made me very, very sad, angry, and disappointed because he was my best friend. So I tried to convert my pain or my fear or my anger or all these three into ideas and actions. Fear has its own energy. If you are afraid of something, then you can gather the confidence and courage to protect yourself. Anger is an energy because that is emotion and it has emotional strength, but don't use that for hatred or revenge or violence, etc. Protect it for a better answer or better solution. So energy could be converted into it. Being an electrical engineer, I learned this, that how can I convert the energy into electricity, the hot furnaces into the cold refrigerators and air conditioners. That is the conversion of energy. So these energies could also be converted. Having said that, I come back to the story. So I decided, out of my anger and pain, that let us try to address the problem from the root. So I convinced one of my friends, and two of us collected some pocket money and decided to take a cart, the four-wheel cart, on rent, and we took it in the surrounding areas, in neighborhoods, on that day when the school results were declared. So most of the children went to the next grade. They passed from the previous grade. And their syllabus books, their textbooks became useless for them. If they don't have an immediate sister or brother, then it is waste. So we went on the streets and started chanting, "Thank you, my dear young friends, congratulations for your success, but also mothers, fathers, uncle, aunties, grandmothers, come and listen. Your grandchildren have passed and went to next grade, and congratulations." But think of those girls and boys who could not continue their education because they didn't have books. So your books are going waste. So why don't you give it and put it in my cart? So I tell you that within few hours, we were able to collect 2,300 books. And then we set up, at the age of 11, with the help of teachers, headmasters, we set up a book bank where the children can borrow the books, needy children, for the whole year, and they can return the books in the end of the year. And that has helped in collecting over 10,000 books within few weeks, because it went like a wildfire. And many people put their used books in that book bank. And I tell you that within a year, no child was forced to leave school because of non-ability or lack of books. Everybody was able to get the books in primary and secondary. That was the first step. And that had given me a confidence that if you have idea, if you get rid of your layers and layers and layers of shyness or fear or depression or some sort of helplessness, that you are alone, who is going to listen to you, I tell you that if you get rid of those layers, the world is yours. Everyone is yours. I feel that all of you, each one of you, is my son, my daughter, my friend, and I love you.
Thank you.
So my question that, do you love me too? Do you love me too?
Yes.
Say loudly, do you love me?
Yes.
Who loves me? Raise hands. I promise that when I leave, I will make you to speak loudly.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Mr. Satyarthi, you've for giving us your time. You told us stories. You told us stories of humor. I love that you were Googling Nobel Peace Prize, even as people are Googling and crashing Google. Who is this person? It's a story of romance, the wonderful story of meeting your wife. It's a story of tragedy and some of the really shocking conditions that you've brought to light, but most importantly, a story of hope. Mr. Satyarthi, you said earlier you are not a teacher. I beg to differ. I think you are a very good teacher. But it's a class in which there will be no exam. Your life will be the exam. And so you have your marching orders. Go out and change the world. But first, please join me in thanking Mr. Satyarthi.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.